everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us this Wednesday afternoon for our Masterclass series focusing on mental health. And today I have the privilege of introducing another expert. We have Paula Jane Newman. Paula is known as the real deal. She couldn't be fake if an Oscar depended on it. She is a global clean comic, MC, event host, inspirational and motivational speaker, voice over improv artist, theatrically trained actress, meditation instructor, and a non-profit founder. Her clean comedy is infused with wisdom, inspirational gems, various voices, silliness, and acts out that do deserve an Oscar. And today she will be sharing her unshakable joy experience and tools and tricks for us despite having challenges, which she will talk about today. So without further ado, welcome Paula.
Hello, thank you. Thank you so much for having me, and welcome to those who are here live and to those who will be joining us. That was a lovely introduction. I will say that having ADHD, I disappeared for part of it and then I came back. Today's talk is going to be about the significance of people who have been diagnosed with adult ADHD, and especially as we have this women focus group, why there are so many women that are now being diagnosed with adult ADHD, the differences, and how to have some solutions in our day. I'll also include a little bit about my personal story so you'll understand that this is coming from an individual that lives with it. First of all, I'd like to go through and talk about who you might know who has ADHD in a public way. Some famous people you might know is the Olympian Simone Biles, who when she went to the last Olympics actually backed out because the country she was in would not allow her ADHD medication. This is very serious because she might have missed a bar, she might have fallen, she might have broken her neck. And standing out as a woman and also a BIPOC woman saying that ADHD could be life-threatening for her if she doesn't have some assistance with medication. We also might know the famous Twiggy, who is a model, very famous in the 60s. And the reason why I picked that particular example is that's a woman that's older who discovered that she had ADHD. She'd had it all her life and experienced some relief, grief, but then also a little bit of overwhelm. Like, this is what happened in my life and the hindrance of having ADHD. It explains a lot, but then there's some sadness that comes with it. Like, my life could have been completely different. You might know Greta Gerwig, the director of Barbie, very well known, and also talks about having ADHD publicly. And if we want to go on to the younger side, Emma Watson. We know her from the Harry Potter films, but also now she's a philanthropist and an advocate for the betterment of the world. So we have all across examples of women here who have been diagnosed with ADHD, some younger than others. So the term ADD has now completely been taken off the medical market and it's ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder. And the reality is, I don't think we really ought to be calling this a disorder. And from this particular lecture, we're coming from the viewpoint of an individual. I am not a certified psychiatrist. I am not a medical professional. I'm a meditation teacher and an individual that's dealt with it all my life without knowing it. The three main types are inattentive type, then you have hyperactive type, and then you have a combination. The majority of the studies of ADHD were always done on men and boys. It wasn't until the 90s did a study actually occur, and this was done by, and I'm just going to make sure I scroll up because I don't want to say anything wrong. That's why, even though you have ADHD, you always have a little prompt card, because you want to make sure everything comes through. One of the most famous TED Talks are done by a woman who has ADHD, talk about bringing on her cards, right? And so this is something we can also help release the stigma of having cards can really help us keep in line. So in 1990, it was the Berkeley girls, and it was a 10-year study. And they found that girls and women who have the ADHD are twice more likely to have mental health issues, twice as more likely to harm themselves, including suicide. When women get to the age of 65, estrogen levels dip, or they may dip beforehand, and that's where also dips dopamine and serotonin. It also then causes more fatigue, more irritability, more memory lapses. And although people might like to blame it on the change that a woman is happening, the reason why some people may experience it more than others is because they might have ADHD undiagnosed. And when the hormone changes occur, they are now personified. So a lot with women's health, it's just bundled into one particular area saying, oh, it's a woman's problem. And the reality is the lack of attention and studies and diagnosis for girls, or when people are younger, can show up that when people are older, they now discover, oh, it's actually ADHD mixed in with a change. There's two things going on here, but it's now personified because of this hormone change. Now, the reason why young boys are actually diagnosed more quickly is one, they actually show ADHD slightly different to women, girls. They tend to be more physical with it, but girls, the female body tends to be more mental with it. This repeating stomach aches from girls, the anxiety of it, the busy mind, the fatigue, feeling tired, I don't want to participate or be social. And part of this is the training that girls are told to sit and be quiet and be polite and not be outspoken and not be physically active. We are in a movement now where it's changing that way, but the medical approach to ADHD has always been, oh, if you're not moving around in the chair and squiggling and you're managing to get good grades, you don't have a problem. The reality is ADHD, there are people who get master's degrees, PhDs, there are accomplished CEOs who discover that they have ADHD later in their life. And the studies have shown that more women are proven to have they call it adult ADHD, even though they've had it all their life, in spite of the fact that they've accomplished all of these tasks. So let's go through a little, here we go, little symptoms of what can happen with ADHD. The first one here is a carelessness and lack of attention to detail. We might find a really bright child will fail standardized tests because they're actually just careless and they make a mistake. It's not because they're not smart. A lot of children who have this are actually then put into bottom streams of education, and what happens is shame comes about. They may be very good at speaking or presentations, but when it comes to the actual writing, it's relating to the ADHD not being able to focus and sit down and do the task, right? There is a difficulty in sustaining attention. It can be done, but a very focused period of time. So ADHD is great if you are someone who has project orientated. When I was 14 years old, I made a decision between whether I wanted to study to be a lawyer or if I wanted to go into the performing arts. And the ultimate line was, one, that's a lot of exams, but two, there's going to be more projects if I'm a performer and I can move on to the next one. The reason that both people who stand up and you have to do your case, but attorneys, you know, it can go on, but it's still case by case, right? The other thing is it doesn't seem to be listening. So I could be listening to you and then doing another task at the same time, right? And that's not true. This will often cause issues. People might find they have ADHD diagnosed during marriage counseling. The other partner can feel like I'm not being seen, I'm not being heard, right? There is a challenge with follow through and complete a task. And it's painful. It's physically painful to be able to finish something that you started because the mind goes off to where it's going to happen next. It's very hard to do tasks that require, sorry, I've got a little eyelash there. Hard to do tasks that require sustainable mental effort. Nobody wants to do their taxes, right? Why else do you think so many people are employed to do taxes, right? But someone who has ADHD, there is an emotional and physical response to needing to do the taxes. And what happens is we're going to get to the next thing, which is the executive functioning has a lot more fatigue. Right? The reason why the stimulants are given for the medication to bring you up and down, we have an opposite reaction to most medications, but also there's a fatigue element that comes. And we're going to get to some techniques at the end to help out with that. The other thing is you lose things needed for important activities. I had a nice little convo with Kelly before this, asking me if I could do a quick video for her. And these quick videos, and if you want to, you can check it out on my Instagram on a Paula Jane Newman or Aware Meditation. I have some meditation videos, some fun videos. Well, these don't happen overnight, but I also knew that everything I needed to get together ready for 1 p.m. today, something was likely to go missing. Something is likely to not be where it is. Now, the chances are it's because of the person that I live with, and that was absolutely true. They decided to take a dongle with them where they went that was attached to one of my devices, right? That's one outside entity. I doesn't even think that could concern the other person. But then suddenly I'm like, where's the ring light? Where is the ring light? And this is a fine example that no matter how much I want to prepare for something, we're getting into some strategies, have to give myself that window of time because something is going to go missing. I have my notes right here on an iPad behind the camera, and you can bet that I brought the iPad into the office area and I could not find it 3 minutes before. It was there in the, like, where is it? Now, I'm not a woman who's 65 that's going through a hormonal change, but I have this happen. And I can tell you, I do get mocked in my house. Oh, what's Paula done now? She put it in a safe place, right? My mother did the same thing. Where is it, Mum? No idea. Put it in a safe place, right? This then gets categorized into, oh, women's health, right? But if a man can't forget something, we already know that they're not organized. They don't have their stuff together. But as a woman, suddenly that they can't do it, it becomes, oh, a little shame, a little derogation of the woman. And this is where I now have the work in progress. These are things that I'm going to lose. These are things that are going to happen right before. So it's very, very common. You're going to misplace something right before you have to be losing your keys. I left my phone. I just had my phone. Where is it now? How could it have disappeared? Right? These are very, very common factors with people who have ADHD. And I'm talking about patterns. I'm not talking about once in a while, right? Easily distracted by unrelated thoughts. Well, I can tell you during a high school English exam, a written exam, there was the name of a song. That was the title of an essay they wanted me to write. And I started thinking of the song. And then I started thinking about why can't I be singing? And then I thought, would I like to go into the movies? And then I wrote a whole essay based on something completely different because my mind had just gone off on a tangent. As we like to say, oh, shiny object, right? This is the habit of ADHD. The other thing that's very distinctive with ADHD is you're forgetful with daily activities. Daily activities are brushing your teeth, daily activities of things that you do every day. Put your clothes in a certain place. Like these routine acts, just somehow the brain disappears. Okay, so let's get to some of the solutions that can happen, and I put in some fun anecdotes of myself on this particular path, as it were. So one thing we have to remember that people who have ADHD actually are not that they can't focus. It's that there are so many thoughts that are going on. This truly is creative mind. This is truly a portal to be able to be in the creative, or as I like to say, the right brain space. So accepting what is, knowing that you are neurodivergent, right? And the challenge is non-neurodivergent people will never understand how you think. And even many neurodivergent people will not understand it too. So it's really a path of you understanding this is how your brain works, right? So there's going to be more exhaustion, right? And maybe some of it could be your diet, maybe not. But the real truth is we want to give the brain and the body some deep rest. Now, mindfulness helps a lot of people, meditation. However, mindfulness does not deal with all aspects in regards to the physical fatigue when it comes to dealing with ADHD, right? The first ADHD, the inattentive aspect of it. Because if you're attempting to focus on your breathing, if you're attempting to focus on things that are happening, about the third thought in, the brain is off. right? And then what happens is the judgment, the shame. Why can't I meditate? I'm not good enough. And then it goes back to early stages in childhood where you were told off because you need to pay attention, you need to be focused. And then what they do is they starve that child from arts or physical activities that actually allow that brain to restore. And it's a lack of understanding that there needs to be more rest, deep rest for the mind processing. Now, aware meditation does do a technique that's called a non-directive practice. Now, a non-directive practice of meditation doesn't fight the mind in any way. It allows the mind to be what it is. And ironically, most people who come to that meditation, and I happen to teach it and tell them, oh, just allow your mind to wander, guess what? They suddenly decide they want to focus. I was like, oh my gosh, you're told to focus all your blooming life. Could you just listen to me and give yourself 20 minutes to just let it almost daydream? But with my technique, it's not. And they did studies, and I like this particular one. I think it was 2016, the University of Oslo and the University of Technology of Sydney combined together and put people under MRIs for various meditations. Now, if you look online, you will find a lot of these meditation studies are all funded by that group of meditation. So of course, they're going to want you to prove that one, right? So this study was not, it was very simple, and it put people under an MRI, all practices. What they discovered was non-directional meditation techniques lit up more parts of the brain, including two areas. One was the part of the brain that deals with restoring deep rest in the body. And two, the area that deals with processing thoughts and emotions. And this is very important when it comes to ADHD. There needs to be a rest for the nervous system. So if you have a female body who internalize it more than a masculine body, right? There's more internal nervous system, the adrenals go out. The reason why a lot of people who have ADHD who have achieved very well have felt the shame because they can't achieve, especially if they're female, not good enough for society or their fathers, or they can't get a scholarship, will have so much anxiety. The adrenals will go up, which will help them focus. The problem is they come down, as it were. So it's not uncommon that people who have ADHD will often then have to use a lot of alcohol or things to calm their mind. So they are actually attempting to self-medicate to deal with this roller coaster to function in the world, right? So when you have deep rest with the body, this is really important because we need the mind to go. And deep rest does not mean watching social media or you need to really have that deep rest with sleep. So the other thing here is some tips of what is a diagnosis specifically for women. I'm going to take a quick sip here. That was not quick. That was like, I think it's in the bottom of the, and I said, how long is this sip going to, you know what it is? I'm trying so hard not to splash on my face that I was like, I'll take a slow sip. Let me try again. Much better. Okay. So women diagnosis, they're very hypersensitive to noises or smells. I can tell from 2 rooms away if someone has left the rubbish lid up. I'm like, what is that smell? I got COVID and did not lose my sense of smell. It would have been better. So I'm very sensitive to smell. I also am very sensitive to noises. So when I focus, and one of the workarounds I have, I go and sit in my car and work. So one of the few places that really helps to insulate with sound are cars. So I'm also a voiceover artist. So I've learned to do auditions. If I can't do it in a regular space, a car is a great place. So I will say, okay, I'm just going to go down in the car for a few moments, even if you need to meditate, but that's a great place where there's less noise. And there's usually enough devices and things that I can work and do a few things, right? Now, okay, it's also very prone to daydream. I'm a big daydreamer. However, we can do another talk on that another time about that fine line of daydreaming and actually bringing about or manifesting what you want to have happened. So it's very, very close to that But they also call that mum brain. And I really feel, again, it's now degrading the fact that a woman is working so hard managing another child, the stress is overwhelming, that it's called mom brain. I say mom because that's the way that Americans write it. And I used to say mum brain. And many women don't know that they have ADHD until they're dealing with a child. So my story was, I was raising a stepchild who had been taken to a psychiatrist and had what's called the WISC-4 test, the Wechsler intelligence test, and came up Mensa level. And this was over a series of days. They were asked questions. They looked at how they thought, but there is a gap. But every time this child went to do a test, they were getting the equivalent of a C, C- student. And at the end of the year final tests, the child was showing up as a C student. Now, I have no problem if someone is a C student, but this test showed that they were Mensa and they should be getting at least a B plus, an A of it. I went through so much with the schools trying to say, no, something is wrong here. They're not testing according to what they're doing. And this also included certain tests when they were preparing. And this came up very clearly in 4th grade. Okay, now this person was always sensitive to noises doing homework, right? Always aware of, so they go off into what I would call the abyss when trying to do homework. And what was happening is I was getting very, very fatigued. Now, I also live in chronic pain, and I was fatigued dealing with the child, right? And what I didn't know, we went to finally get the child tested in high school because the high school counselor said, you're absolutely doing everything we tell people to do. You're doing that first rather than going straight to medication. Let's go and get this child tested. Now, the child was determined as a female to not show that they had a problem. And the child made themselves sit still, focus really hard, and a lot of the time just didn't answer questions. And so the person would say, I can't really evaluate this because they're sitting still and they're not answering the questions that much. This was clearly not someone who has an experience of being able to see the difference between a girl body and a boy body with ADHD. So all that happened was, oh no, they're fine. So when it got to high school and the high school counselors were like, maybe at this point, just ask the general doctor or a psychiatrist to do the test, right? They did not want to do this. And why? Because they were concerned they were going to have shame. They weren't good enough. They weren't going to be able to do that. They didn't want to have extra time for tests. They didn't want to be seen as that person. They were also dealing with, they were a BIPOC student at a scholarship of a very prestigious school. So this is going to look bad. All of the shame that was coming up. So finally, I said, well, I'll go with you and I'll get myself tested with you. Will that make you feel better? Will you come along with me? Right? So they had to get a special individual to do it for them. And then I had one. And what was rather shocking was my diagnosis was far more off the charts than theirs was. And I had this experience of, well, no wonder I'm so tired all the time. I'm trying to manage an ADHD child without all the help I need, and I have it as well. No wonder I'm so fatigued, right? Or I'm irritable, right? Or I'm trying to do all these workarounds, right? Feeling like I'm not getting the support of it. And this is where things actually began to change. The child was then given some medication. We were trying some out, and this was the difference. This child has meditated since they were 6 years old. This child has been doing swimming or physical sports to help them focus since they were very young as well. This child has been very aware of what they can do to eat to help themselves be more focused, right? The child was doing a non-directive meditation practice, so the body was getting deep rest. I remember one time I was a PTA parent and they were sitting in the room and I was like, why don't you just do your meditation? It was after school. And what happened was they meditated. And in this practice, when they're tired, you just fall asleep sometimes. Your body is so tired. And they were like this. And the parents was like, oh my gosh, are they okay? Are they okay? I said, oh yeah, they just finished meditating. This was not a poster child for my meditation, right? Because people think meditation is, like we will sit upright and we will be clear. No, 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 right? Meditation, going within, and they needed that deep, deep rest for their body. So after school, it was always a 2-hour break because they literally needed to go to sleep. They literally needed to be in a school where in the morning they did the math and the science and the language and the English. And then in the afternoon, it was creative arts because their brain could not take tests in the afternoon versus the morning. So we gave them some medication and they were taking what's called the ACT test. And the ACT test, each section has a certain number before you can go up a point, right? This person went the equivalent of 34 points up simply by taking the medication for their test. They were able to focus. This person then started to show up for college applications where they actually are, not where they're showing up on just the tests. And those of you who have gone through college applications will understand these standardized tests are very important. Now, they were actually applying for the arts, but some art programs you couldn't get into the university unless you were doing okay on the standardized test, right? That's just the way that it was. They then said to me after the first weekend of taking it, is this why my friends can go and hang out and have done their homework and they don't spend all weekend doing it? And I felt very sad and my heart really went out to them because the answer is and was yes. Yes. You have ADHD. You cannot achieve these tasks in the way other people can. When they first went to university and they were older now to decide whether they want to use it or not, they had one day where they chose not to take their ADHD medicine. They scheduled a meeting. They scheduled the meeting with their study group for a subject, and they forgot the meeting. Then they realized they forgot the meeting. They reached out to everyone and said, I am so sorry. I forgot the meeting. Let's do it later in the day. Everyone said, no problem. They rescheduled it in the afternoon, and then they forgot again. And they came to me in absolute tears. I said, just tell them you have ADHD and you didn't take your medicine today. Because this is real. This is not something that people are faking. This is a different brain and how it works, right? And so it's been navigating. Now, the biggest challenge was what you want to have for a solution, whether you want medication or not. This individual, this child, is now an adult, and they have learned how to manage whether they want to take it or not want to take it. And early on, their father was very, very concerned about them getting addicted to this medication. A lot of it is stimulants, right? And after several chats with various psychiatrists, the solution, they said, was the individual is going to seek options to help manage their ADHD, whether it's prescribed or substances on the street. If you want them to be educated and it to be in a controlled, safe substance, you probably would want to start talking to a doctor or a psychiatrist, a neurologist. And that's where it really became clear. This is a lifetime of learning how to adjust. It's not simply a quick fix. People go off of medication, they don't. So for periods of time, if you have the medication, there are certain things that you can do to notice. Notice what is different when you take it and find out specifically what's different. So for a period of time, I with them took some medication to help me. And I will tell you, I went from doing some voice jobs, maybe 5 episodes out of 10, to being asked back to do all 10. It was night and day. Why? Because it also helped my confidence. Because I was able to stop the noise, which was telling me, Paula, focus, focus, Paula, any minute now, you're going to say something that's wrong, and they're not going to appreciate what you're doing, right? I also noticed that I live in physical pain, and being on the computer is very, very tricky. that I was able to really listen when my body was saying, stop. You need to get off of this position. You need to go out for a walk. You need to surrender what's happening. You need to do this now. Okay. Then it was also very clear that I got certain tasks done. Now, I don't take the medication now. I learned what I needed to do because there was extreme anxiety and heart, if blood pressure went up tremendously. So there are side effects. But the child who's now an adult has learned what to do. And this is the same whether it's a alternative health substance as well. Now, I personally wouldn't advocate things that make you check out. Alcohol bring you down to check out, CBD gummies, whatever, to help you check out, because it's not allowing the brain to really learn how to try to retrain or how to cope with this in the world, right? The beautiful thing with people who have neurological neurodivergency is they do think differently. So there's going to be a solution that no one will have thought of, right? They're also, in this time, we need to be outside more. And if you have this going on, you've got to get off of the computer. You've got to go on one of Kelly's retreats. You have to get into nature. You have to do something fun or maybe do some comedy, right? The biggest joke is having ADHD, I would never know if I took my medicine or not because I forgot. Have I taken it? I don't know. I don't know. Right? People, how could you not know? I don't know anymore. I mean, it's my and the only ways I had to monitor is the heart rate loud, is the blood pressure up, am I not doing it? And things, emotions would get so intense, right? We're like, whoo, I need to come back to the ground, right? Can I take what I've learned and infuse it now? Get off the computer when I want to. Trust the creative brain is going to bring in what I need and who I need at the right time. And ultimately knowing this is all a complete play joke anyway. I can die and the world will still go on. It's so sad. It's so depressing. Like if I died, some people will be really sad for a bit. You know what I mean? Like a blip in the universe, right? And so take the pressure off oneself, right? Know that my best talk here will be what's happening. Let's say there was something that happened in the world right before this talk and I saw it on the news. That would be relevant because people are then going to be looking at the talk and be like, whoa, this is how an ADHD person responds emotionally to something that's happened. But when we have a spiritual awareness that we are not the victim of everything, we are some people who have ADHD diagnosed later in life, which I will tell you brought a lot of grief for me. So I've dealt with grief from having my injury, because I have a repetitive stress injury, and how so I could see comparisons of my friends who achieved so many things at certain times. That was harsh. And then with the ADHD, I was like, well, that's my body, not my mind as well. Come on, give me a break, right? But learning that, well, perhaps I navigated through a few things as a result of this. Perhaps my intuition was right when I won the $10,000 on a game show for my nonprofit. And I made the right choice. And that's how I ended up taking it around the globe more. These are things that will be balancing out who we are. The challenge is when I compare myself to overachievers. And there are many videos, if you wish to look further about it, of women who are CEOs who have achieved PhD and how they went down the rabbit hole and all had mental breakdowns, complete lack of mental capacity because they were following this rat race and had ADHD. And what and who are we really? When we connect to who we really are and we know that's what we have, we can accommodate for it. And somehow the time and the space opens up for that, right? And when we have that, we have more joy. And when we have more joy, more things come to us rather than us having to work for it. And so simply change the agenda of what you're supposed to live up to and who you're supposed to be. And if you have a high paying job and it's high functioning and it has high demands and you're competing, it's not sustainable long term on the physiology. We can look at an example of Steve Jobs, who just knows they died before their time, right? So determined to get something moving forward rather than acknowledging what's going on with their health or other issues, right? This is because we're trained the value of who we are is based on the female as like what it looks like, how demure that we are, right? And then if you don't have that, how many children you have physically made or taken care of. And if you don't have that, you better have had a high career. Well, perhaps none of that is what you're supposed to be doing this particular lifetime. Perhaps you're supposed to be doing something else. These are questions because the ADHD person will naturally be having a mind searching for that. Why does this happen to me? Why can't I be like my sibling? Why can't I be like this? You are you for all perfection of who you're supposed to be, right? So if you want to know more about ADHD, we suggest that you go and look for resources of diagnosis if you're unsure. The adult diagnosis of ADHD is becoming stronger in women, especially over 40. Considering the first studies came out in the early 2000s, you can imagine we're way behind on it, and women are speaking out more about it. I encourage you, if you're watching this and you have it, go write a blog yourself. The more that's out there, the more healing that can come about it, and everyone can laugh together because we're all just navigating this particular thing as well. Now, I also have, and Kelly's going to announce it for those of you who are there is going to be a giveaway for my stand-up comedy for healing class. And how does that relate to ADHD? Well, there's nothing more funnier than coming to terms with your own challenges and being able to write it in a comedic way and have the privilege of performing it to people who are supportive and loving. That creates a somatic healing experience. The anxiety will pop up, and then you find that you are carried on the other end. And this is all done online. And when we have a final combination, the ticket sales go towards a non-profit, and people find tremendous healing in their life. Their spouses being able to have someone to laugh at the fact that they have ADHD, that they are not alone, right? There is a healing element that can happen with ADHD, and you're not alone with it. So Kelly, please take it away if that's
I
cool.
love that. I love that closing. And thank you for sharing your story and how you cope up. It's so just fascinating listening to everything that you've been through and going through and how you're actually coping with it and finding more joy. It's just like I wish everyone who are experiencing this watch this video or share to loved ones who might have neurodivergence, right? And if they need to get in touch with you, Paula, how and where can they find you?
Oh, thank you so much. So there is the website, can't talk. There is the website, paulajanenewman.com. You can also slide into the DMs on Instagram, Paula Jane Newman, or Aware Meditation. There's awaremeditation.com. Those are the best ways to find me. And you can find out about the courses, and you can also find out about the fun comedy that I really believe fusing wellness. I like to say Rise Up Comedy is wellness and art colliding.
I love that. Dr. Leeton, thank you so much for joining us. She just sent a heart.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, so for everyone watching this, I'll be posting the promotion, the giveaway that Paula mentioned, and you will be eligible to win her 5-week workshop on comedy healing. And it's for everyone. And I'll put the instruction and how to join and how to win, but it's just simply following Paula and following happyme.collective on IG and maybe other platforms that you're in. So thank you so much for your time today, Paula. Thank you, Dr. Leeton, for joining us live. And if there are any questions after watching this, feel free to email me at kelly@happyme.yoga, or you can slide in our DMs, and we will try to give you the resources you need or answer your perspective. Again, thank you so much, Paula, for this wonderful, wonderful masterclass about your experience on adult ADHD.
Thank you.
And looking forward to seeing you very soon in person. Bye now.